So hello and welcome to today's webinar, Driving IoT Innovation and Revenue Growth with Lightweight M2M. My name is Miguel Morales and I am your host for today's session. Before we get started, we're going to do a few housekeeping items. All lines have been placed on mute and to prevent any background noise. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A tab to your right, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. I'd also like to encourage you to use the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen to engage with us, your friendly panelists and participants. And please be sure to review the Documents tab where you can find some additional goodies and resources to explore after the webinar. Now on to the good stuff and the reason you are all here. The topic of Lightweight M2M is something that I've become passionate about in my role as leading the commercial IoT in North America here at Cumulocity IoT. My background has included IoT for a long time. This standard happened to come out of 2017. I was coming off of a corporate VP job at Parker Hannifin and heading into an edge to cloud specialist role at Microsoft. And I've always been interested in its opportunity to sort of help enable interoperability in battery-powered devices in IoT. So I've watched the technology grow. I'm excited to present some of the latest findings about the size and opportunity of the market in the coming years. From a programming note, unfortunately, Dr. Krishna from AWS had a conflict arise, and he's not able to participate today. It is, however, my sincere pleasure to introduce you to Efren Mercado, the Senior Worldwide IoT Strategy Lead for AWS. He is a seasoned technology leader. He drives global strategy and go-to-market initiatives for AWS IoT solutions, and he focuses on healthcare, life sciences, and energy. We also happened to have worked together in the past, so was very excited. Efren, thank you for stepping in today. Finally, we are joined today by my friend Ty Roberts, Vice President of Product Marketing from the networking team at Itron. He is a leading advocate for the use of Lightweight M2M in smart cities and utilities. And in his role, I think he plays a key role in shaping the future of energy and water management at a global scale. So welcome, Ty. Happy to have you join us. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about your role and in Itron.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Miguel, and really happy to be here today. This is an exciting topic for us for lots of reasons. So, Itron is an industrial IoT company. We focus on delivering connected solutions and digital platforms to utilities primarily, but also to smart cities and the various departments within cities that implement smart connected solutions as well. We've, as Itron, have deployed just over 220 million communicating devices in the field over the last couple of decades, and 94 million of those devices we actually manage on behalf of our customers. So connectivity and enabling end-to-end use cases in a scalable fashion and with a variety of devices is our bread and butter. So this topic's really important to us because it has to do with all of that.
That's awesome. That's such a tremendous scale. I'm always baffled by the idea of 220 million anythings, especially when they're such a critical part of like our infrastructure and utilities and smart cities and so forth. So I'm excited to talk about that in the context of Lightweight M2M. Thank you. So what is the agenda of that we're going to discuss? It's relatively straightforward here, right? What is it? What is Lightweight M2M for those of us who may be researching it? Why now? What's really driving the adoption? Real world use cases from Ty and our friends at Itron. We've got Efren from AWS, right? We've got two major players in the IoT space. How do we collaborate? What's the better together story? How can folks benefit? So we'll cover that, and then we'll bring it back to where we see the future is headed for the standard. So what is it? essentially, I'm going to take the slightly, I guess, geekier approach to the description. I would imagine Ty or Efren, you guys probably see it differently, but there is a confluence of trends. You got a whole bunch of IoT devices out here. Last I checked, I saw a report from our chief product officer saying that 65% of companies have connected product strategies. First of all, I don't know what the other 35% are doing. Like they're a little bit late to the party, but there's a ton of connected devices, and many of them are battery powered, long range communication, mobile for some reason. And so I think that that's one element. And in order to enable those, there was this like growing list of standards. And I probably didn't even capture all of them here, but LPWAN broadly stated, right? LoRaWAN, Sigfox, NB-IoT, cellular had a couple, it was like Cat M, was that for the small one, I think? But you have all these different ways that devices can communicate. It doesn't necessarily address how devices can interoperate. And definitely everybody has seen many reasons why security is essential. So Lightweight M2M comes in to address all those things. It puts a client on a Lightweight M2M client on the end device. And so you can imagine this would be maybe a meter or an accelerometer sensor. And that client is going to include predefined objects. And these objects are really powerful because they are the ones that define the standard way for both managing the device as well as representing the data that it's going to provide. So it may be an accelerometer object that exists on the device. Maybe it also has a temperature object on the device, but it definitely has a firmware update object so that when the device communicates with a Lightweight M2M server, that device can then be managed. It can be integrated into the applications. And so there are a couple of standard interfaces for provisioning, for registering, for checking, reporting in on the links. It's doing so in encrypted fashion. It is secure, and it is definitely bandwidth and power efficient. So it does it with this technology stack. By the way, it's managed by the OMA SpecWorks organization. So Itron is a member, Cumulocity or Software AG are members, and we collaborate on demonstrating adherence to the specifications and feedback to move it forward. But you see on the tech stack, all of those different, let's call them physical layer technologies or network layer technologies, whether it's cellular or LoRaWAN or secure TCP or just TCP, all via DTLS. At the end of the day, it moves into a co-app layer for that skinny communication that gets ultimately the Lightweight M2M stack sits on top of that. You get the objects, and now you build the application. So that's the geeky explanation, I guess, of the standard and how it's defined. But what does that mean? How do we translate that technology, Ty, for example, to how you guys see it in Itron?
Yeah, so it's I think as I noted, Ed, we've got a long history of connecting devices, and what we do well for our customers is integrate connected devices into their business process and their business operations, and often that means that you want to actually manage those devices. You don't just set them in the field and forget about them. Our customers as utilities are often, they deploy devices with a 10, 15, 20-year field life, which is hard to believe, but that's the norm with the use cases we deliver in our industry. So there's absolutely an expectation that you're going to be able to configure that device over the air, to change its behavior over the air, to be able to update its security profile over the air. And manage it more than just merely collecting data from it. And I think the challenge that we've always had is especially when you're like we are working with devices and device vendors from who are enabling many different kinds of use cases. There has never been, I think the joke that we tell is the great thing about standards is that there's so many of them out there to choose from. It's easy to do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't solve the problem, right? And I think when it comes to reading data from devices, it's one thing to be able to translate from a proprietary application protocol into a data set that you can know and manage, and that's complex enough, but it's reasonably straightforward to do. But to actually interact with the device in a meaningful way, so that you're telling it how to change its behavior over time, to manage it over its life cycle, that's really hard to do, especially if it's 100 or 1,000 different proprietary protocols that each vendor has invented. You just can't. It doesn't scale. It doesn't work. So this was really the genesis of Lightweight M2M. Really began with carriers themselves realizing, hey, we're now in 3GPP community, standards community, inventing machine-to-machine cellular technology standards. What are we going to do to actually manage those devices that we want to deploy with those standards and with that technology, and read and manage them over time? So it was really carriers in the cellular community that first got behind Lightweight M2M to let's create an IoT, a general IoT standard that we can use to manage different kinds of devices. And of course, for Itron, that appeals tremendously as well, because we have the same kinds of challenges and needs, and our customers have the same requirements of needing to manage fleets of devices, lots of them, very heterogeneous population, different kinds of devices, different vendors. So us really trying to get behind a standard that helps us do that in a lightweight way, hence the name, such that we can manage different kinds of devices, including those that are incredibly battery sensitive and power sensitive. We have to manage, for example, for a water utility or a gas utility, a battery powered device in the field for 20 years. So the protocol that we use to talk to it and to manage it has to be incredibly sensitive to power consumption, and that's another factor where we really saw promise in Lightweight M2M, was we could really help guide the standard to a place that would be sensitive to our customers and our industry's needs as well. So really trying to tame the wild west and bring some consistency to a variety of IoT use cases and IoT device types, such that these things can actually be managed by our customers and by the people who use them at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a tricky problem, right? That I don't know how many projects over the last 8 or 9 years I've started, and there's different ones. Like if there's people that make the hardware and you connect the devices, and there's that ROI path, which I think is relatively, I want to say, well defined. I think the operators, though, like the cities in this case, that then have to take devices from multiple third parties, end up with that proprietary protocol problem. And it's pretty significant. Like every time I talk to a major operator, whether it's in retail or cities or oil and gas or utilities, it's like, all right, we want to do this IT project, list of vendors and OEM suppliers, and then how confident are you that they're going to give us their decoder ring? And then it's like a 4-month project for each one of those, with systems integration, requirements to actually be able to talk to the darn things. And so the time and energy that can potentially be saved with standard data models, these data objects on the data side alone, is significant. But what I'm hearing you say is it's not enough. You also benefit significantly from a consistent way to update and manage those devices. And this sort of offers both, right? I was talking with one of the members of your team, Ty, and he mentioned how different regions have like different preferences, I guess, for buying product. Like maybe Australia wants a fully integrated meter with leak detection, but somewhere else in Asia Pacific may actually prefer to separate those, and they get a meter from Itron, but they have a third-party leak detector. And now what do you do? Like to provide a similar level of functionality. And that's where this sort of starts to offer offer the solution. And the standard itself has evolved, right? It's come a long way. 2017, again, I was transitioning from Parker into Microsoft at the time. The first standard was published. I think the OMA merged with another standards body organization, publishes the first version, and they started adding PKI support for v1.1 and having the TCP connections, JSON support, which has become a pretty standard practice. But in this latest version, 1.2, I think they really hit the mark in terms of broad adoption. And there's any number of reasons why the standard is good, but the support for MQTT and HTTP to me seems like a pretty standard practice in terms of event-based IoT development, right? I think that was pretty significant. Gateway support is really powerful because oftentimes sensors, when you think about IoT network topologies, your sensors are sitting behind a gateway, and some of them might be Lightweight M2M, some of them might not be. So having that facility to support that at the gateway level inside the protocol is super helpful. I know that's something that we're collaborating with you on. Cellular has just become more ubiquitous and more available and better coverage. I think there's an element, and the standard continues to stay focused on optimizing power and making it easy to manage the devices via these objects, which are, the decoders. And looked up, besides our experience with Lightweight M2M, what are some of the different verticals where the market is seeing adoption? You see smart cities and utilities, like we've discussed. Industrial still stands to benefit. It actually, with the introduction of MQTT and HTTP, it doesn't necessarily need to be only battery powered devices that are highly battery constrained. It's possible to support different device configurations, some that are fully powered or may have more data. Asset tracking, healthcare, I think there was agriculture. I was curious to hear actually a little bit from Efren. Like, AWS has a pretty broad reach, right? In terms of all these different standards. Like, how do you see standards in general driving adoption of IoT in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Miguel. I've been in the space a long time, but from an AWS point of view, and just zooming out to talk about standards specifically, if you think about it, standards are really what drives the IoT industry and many industries forward, because standards really affect everything from device compatibility to security and innovation. So at AWS, we really view standards as the critical enablers that really enable our customers to deploy various IoT use cases. So when we dive into standards, there's a broader perspective that I have, right? Standards do a number of things from a customer perspective. First and foremost, it's really about seamless integration. And both you and Ty touched on a lot of this, right? Interoperability standards really allows devices and systems from various manufacturers at the end of the day to work seamlessly together. This is really essential for creating cohesive IoT ecosystems. So when we think about things like a smart city that has a lot of sensors, it has traffic systems, it actually has public service repositories. When you think about standards like communication protocols, as an example, MQTT, or manufacturing protocols like OPC UA, and even at the home level, things like Bluetooth and Zigbee, these fundamentally just ensure that devices and components can, at the end of the day, communicate effectively together to provide, to produce sort of an efficient system. With standards, you get things like security, because without a standard around security, It's pretty much like, again, the wild, wild west. So security, of course, in IoT is a major concern, right? So when you think about standards like transport layer security or TLS, again, just underscores why it's important in terms of really building a cohesive ecosystem. When you think about just integration and security, this naturally goes to fostering growth. So interoperability creates, these ecosystems of compatible devices. What's interesting, and one thing that I'll highlight, right, when we think about fostering innovation in the smart home space, as an example, AWS is driving a standard like Matter. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Matter. It is the latest standard for smart homes. It basically ensures that different devices at the end of the day can work together.
It's funny you bring that up, because when Ty was talking about the Wild West of the industrial IoT landscape, or for utility landscape, I think about my home and how many apps I have, and I've got I think my parents' house literally has like a Google and an Alexa, and they can talk to Siri, and there's a Samsung thing. So where is that one in particular? Is it tamed yet?
It's an evolving process, right? Every major manufacturer has a specific point of view. They have solutions already in market, but that's precisely the challenge, right? Everybody has their own approach, which makes it difficult at the end of the day for the end consumer. And so Matter is one way in which all of these major companies are coming together to try to solve for that problem. So that just underscores why interoperability and standards matter, because when you look at the problem at face value, it's really, how do you solve the customer's challenges? And if there are various ways in which you can execute a solution, that might work, but it's not scalable. So we want to really drive a standard that can be leveraged across, any manufacturer, across any provider, to, at the end of the day, provide the value for the end customer. One of the things, since I cover healthcare, where, I think standards really accelerate innovation, as an example, is healthcare. So if you think about healthcare and the healthcare record, things like healthcare level 7, and FHIR, for those of you who don't know, it's fast health interoperability response. What that basically all means is there were standards developed to really enable sort of this integration of medical devices, electronic health records. But at the end of the day, it drives innovation, like better patient care or more efficient healthcare delivery. But what I want to touch before we pivot off this topic is standards take a lot of time. Again, I'll go to the Matter example specifically. Matter launched, more specifically, it was CHIP, or Connected Home Internet Protocol, back in 2019. And Matter has yet to take off. It's gaining traction. It's now 2024. So 5 years later, standards take time. And why is it? Again, you kind of touched on a point, Miguel. In the smart home space, you're collaborating across multiple stakeholders, Apple, Google, us, and many others. You have to build consensus among all of these various players. There's a lot of technical complexity. The list goes on and on, but I do want to underscore, so things like the Lightweight M2M standard, as well as any other standard, it takes time to come to fruition, and I would say, mainstream adoption. So that's an important thing to consider when you're looking at architecting your IoT solution for your particular business. Standards are there for a reason, and it's really there to help you accelerate your journey.
That's awesome. Thank you, Everin. I mean, Ty, what do you think happened here? Because like Lightweight M2M seems to have this energy that like it's working. Folks are coming on board, and it's gaining adoption. And 7 years later, what do you think happened, and why is it taking off now?
Yeah, well, it always comes down to a few large players throwing their weight behind it and actually getting devices in the field. And once you start getting some critical mass, then the standard actually gains some weight and heft and traction and more support within the working groups that are defining it, more people who care about it. But it takes that first push. I think that's what we've seen with Lightweight M2M, and for in our space, in the Itron space with utilities in particular, we really saw that happen in Australia, in the water market in particular, where a few large water utilities a few years ago really decided, you know what, they were collaborating closely with carriers to start with and looking at cellular-based solutions, so that pulling options, standards options from the cellular world was a pretty natural fit. There are options within the metering space. I want to sort of mention that DLMS COSM is a device management / security / application protocol that's used by tens of millions of devices in the metering world, but is really designed and defined originally for electric devices. So it was working its way toward battery-powered devices, but this Lightweight M2M was a better fit. And also, I think the view was it will be easier for non-utility, non-metering device vendors and solution providers to adopt something that's a little less metering centric. So the hope was that the Lightweight M2M would be a bit more generalized, which it absolutely is. But I think it's interesting listening to Efron. I have to, and your shout out to Zigbee a little while ago, where I still have tics and scars from experiences there. It's, I think, knowing what's important to you and where to leverage standards and where to sort of give into it essentially and make your platform and your approach extensible is important. So I think what we've realized as Itron and making bets over the years on various home automation protocols that never gained critical mass, and despite us alone spending sometimes tens of millions of dollars on it, we've decided let's make our platform really extensible, so that as standards are adopted and evolve and gain traction and maybe lose traction over time, we can implement pretty easily sort of agents that are doing protocol translation at the edge and in the right spot, and we can switch those out in over time, no problem. We don't have any control over the home automation space. Utilities don't have any control over the home automation space. Big players like AWS do, but we're sort of at the sidelines. So that's fine, and let's act that way. But we decided really that for devices that really matter for our core business and for our customers' core business, where they need to be able to manage these, in many cases, mission critical devices, that's where we're going to put our chips down. And that's where we're really investing in Lightweight M2M as one of those standards that we're pushing for broad adoption and ongoing development to have be a living and breathing standard that's evolving over time, because we want to use it for the devices and the use cases that are truly mission critical, where we want to be able to bring partner devices, third-party devices to market faster, and be able to be assured ourselves and our customers that we'll be able to manage those consistently. So there's a lot of sort of picking your spots and where you're going to make your bets, and where you decide we're just going to be extensible and be flexible.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We have a question. Blake. Hello, Blake. It's good to see you. As a machine OEM, what factors should I be considering for landing on a common communication standard for my machines? It's going to enable better integration of other machine tools to our platform for smart factory instead of just a smart machine. I mean, I think that the out-of-box answer is probably OPC-UA. In the floor, on the factory floor specifically, it would be analogous, I guess, to Lightweight M2M. One of the realities, I think, though, and you guys chime in if you see it any differently, is that Ty hinted towards, like, you need an extensible and a flexible approach, in that if you have ability to speak a standard, you also have maybe options. Ultimately, operators are combining some devices that are speaking a standard like OPC UA and some devices that are speaking some old version of field bus. So I think you got to start at your customer and work your way back. Maybe there's something specific within that factory space that they're interested in that may go outside of what's available in the standard. So you make a choice to either contribute to the standard or have an alternative way to deliver that value. But you ultimately need optionality. Thank you for the question. Ty, you mentioned, you've got tremendous scale with over 220 million connected devices. Can you give us some type of example where, you've got large deployment and you see a potential benefit of Lightweight M2M now or in the future?
Yeah, so there's two places where we are bringing Lightweight M2M based solutions to market right now, and one is in the water metering space. So this is utilities or cities measuring the water that they're pumping through the distribution system in order to bill people to how much anyone is consuming at any given point in time, but also to find leaks is another one of their key use cases. So that's again, as I mentioned earlier, that's a sort of the genesis of leveraging Lightweight M2M for this set of use cases really began in the Australian water market, but we're broadening that scope and bringing that same solution to a number of different places. So we're a key for water measurement business and opportunities especially with larger municipalities or with large water utilities, is they have to be multi-vendor. So they don't ever buy all of their meters or all their devices from one provider. They want to be assured that they're going to get a consistent set of use cases from a variety of vendors so that they can shop around for price competition, that if there's, like we just went through the last few years with the global supply chain crisis and they're having trouble getting devices from one vendor, they can get them from somebody else. So that is really important to them. So Lightweight M2M, especially when using cellular technology to read these devices, is a really great approach and a great solution. So that's one space. The other is we're launching this year our first cellular connected streetlight controllers. So these are control nodes that sit on top of streetlights and sometimes area lights in order to allow the city to dim them, to brighten them, to detect when there's an outage with them so they can go out and fix those, to do a whole variety of different things. So that's another case, again, where multi-vendor is an important approach. So we have an open solution end-to-end and support multiple vendors, and this is another great tool that we can leverage here in order to get solutions to market faster. One little sort of segue that I'll use to sort of amplify why this is so important is, if you go way back in time to the early 1990s, where an early software solution that Itron brought to market called NV90 was developed such that it was people, there was no standards at all in terms of metering protocol. So every vendor, and often for each product line that they launched, used its own proprietary protocol. So where Itron really got started was, let's actually build a software solution that can manage and read as many of these different kinds of devices that we could. So we spent months and months and months building out drivers basically to collect data from, and in some cases manage these different devices. So over time, we compiled this library of about 250 different protocols that we would use to connect all these different kinds of devices. Again, this was absolute Wild West, but it was an incredibly popular product. We sold it to almost every medium-sized or larger utility in the world because this was such a big problem to solve. But the problem was it took months and months and months of specialized resources to build those drivers. And if the guy at small metering company XYZ retired or left, and a new guy who said, I don't like what that guy did at all, I'm going to do it all over again differently, then we'd have to go through the same process again. So,
yeah, it's fragile, right? To not have that standard, each individual driver is a special snowflake.
Exactly. So that's an extreme, but it's a reality as well. So this is where, so we've lived through that, and we did well at it because we focused on, let's specialize on connecting this whole wide range of devices in this wild west scenario. But it's much easier and much faster to bring solutions to market where there is a standard that underpins them. So that's why we're so focused, especially in these cases here.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely seems it makes sense, I guess, that cities are going to diversify their supplier base. I've always wondered, like, how many street lights does a big city deploy? There's a bunch, right? Like,
yeah,
there or something?
It can be 100,000 to 200,000 lights, and so medium-sized city is tens of thousands. There's sometimes a large, a utility, a large electric utility will own lights, and sometimes they can own a couple of million. So they can be pretty large fleets. But even when you get past lighting, I mean, one of the promises that we, in selling our platform is you start with lighting, but you connect other devices, enable other use cases through the same investment. And that's where the lack of standards really becomes a challenge, because there actually are standards in the lighting world. But if you're then talking about gas emission sensing or leak detection or sewer overflow detection or all these other myriad of use cases where there are no standards, this is where us really promoting Lightweight M2M with device vendors and solution vendors is super helpful, because we can speed their path to market in a significant way.
That's awesome. It's one of those things you don't realize somebody's managing like a million things in the city, but it's a serious challenge. So let's talk about a little bit. Thank you, Ty. Very, very insightful in the smart cities and utility space. I want to spend a little bit of time with Itron on the AWS and Cumulocity story. We've got two of the Gartner leading quadrant vendors for industrial IoT collaborating here, and certainly want to help people understand how that works, right? How do you benefit from working with two of them? Cumulocity IoT, easy way to get started, a reliable way to scale. Providing 60 to 80% of the IoT services that you need not build. We mentioned that 65% of customers have, or companies have, a connected product strategy. Many of those are sort of revisiting the question of build versus buy. Cumulocity is a buy and integrate option for accelerating the capabilities you need for connected products, arguably twice as fast and less people required. But Itron, maybe you can help talk through the value of working together. How do AWS and Cumulocity coexist?
Yeah, thanks, Miguel. So here it's really the better together story, right, on why you should consider Cumulocity plus AWS. So when we think first and foremost about really managing devices, securely connecting them, again, as Miguel just mentioned, really without having to build your own solution, so more towards the buy scenario, it's really combining the strengths of both companies. So from Cumulocity in this perspective, they already have solutions around things like device management, secure connectivity, to manage these devices. Where AWS comes into this equation is we provide the underlying secure, scalable cloud infrastructure that really, provides the foundational support for the Cumulocity platform. Again, Miguel touched on this briefly. You're working with two industrial IoT market leaders. The combination just means you're getting the best of both worlds. Again, here, Cumulocity is recognized for extensive industrial IoT capabilities. They provide a very proven platform around device and data management. Equally, AWS is known for our reliability, scale, and scalability in our cloud infrastructure. So again, with the combination of both, we provide a robust, really foundation for you to build your IoT solution on. Where it's most interesting, right, in any IoT scenario, it's not actually about the data. It's actually turning that data into actionable insights, right? Data-driven decisions. And this is where Cumulocity, again, they actually provide some built-in analytic tools that can help you transform like the incoming raw data and derive some meaningful insights. On the AWS side, think of it as complementary, right? AWS offers other powerful analytics services like Amazon Kinesis. We have serverless solutions like Lambda, as well as BI capabilities like with QuickSight. When we think about digital twins, or again, more advanced AI or ML capabilities, where I would differentiate here or just give you some delineation between the benefits that Cumulocity brings versus AWS. Cumulocity focuses on, I would say, a lot of the heavy lifting, normalizing the data, contextualizing that data, really providing sort of the foundation to do things like advanced analytics. Where on the AWS side, you have more advanced tools like SageMaker, again, for developing more advanced machine learning models. And as we all know, and it's sort of the buzz everywhere, is generative AI, right? Think about once you get the data into the cloud, both the Cumulocity and AWS data pipeline can also power things like Amazon Bedrock, which is our service to instantiate large language models and give you experiences like what you do with Claude or ChatGPT as an example. But at the end of the day, this partnership is really built in a way that gives you a solution that will minimize total cost of ownership and really reduce sort of the day-to-day maintenance, right? Because underlying this solution, you have a lot of managed platform services and infrastructure services from AWS. And Cumulocity is a cloud-native architecture, which leverages all of the benefits that come with that. And then finally, again, Cumulocity is built on top of AWS. And we have an extensive global infrastructure. It allows you to deploy your IoT application, manage it across multiple regions. Just to give you some sense, we're deployed in 33 regions around the globe. We have 105 availability zones that basically equates to a data center. The net point being is, depending on the scale, depending on the geographic diversity of your company or your solution, you can be confident that with AWS and with Cumulocity, you have a ready solution that can help you accelerate your time to market.
That's awesome. I think about AI and LLMs. I like to think about the idea of them hallucinating. And sometimes I joke that I think IoT data is like a medicine to prevent hallucinations, right? You're going to improve that information quality, if you will. We do have a joint architecture, right, Itron? We have a joint white paper together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not going to go through this in detail, but again, it's just to illustrate how the partnership works in concert with one another, all the way from the edge into the cloud. Again, the real value of this type of deployment is really around developing that data-driven insight, taking actionable insight based on information that's coming in. Again, this will be shared, but want to just show you that there are various components within both the Cumulocity deployment leveraging AWS resources. So when you think about, just things like at the edge, we have device agents. I don't want to go into too much detail, just being sensitive of time. Just understand that there are various services within inside of the AWS cloud that the Cumulocity service takes full advantage of. So at the end of the day, we really want to help you drive the use case that's most meaningful for your business. And this is a good template and reference architecture to get you started on your journey that much quicker.
Thank you, Adrian. And we try to make it easy for the audience members. There's actually a docs tab right next to the chat window where we preloaded some documentation, including our joint white paper with AWS. So let's bring it home. We got, it's like the end of the radio podcast and the music is starting to play. What's next? Ty, and then Efren, and then I'll give one.
Yeah, I'll be brief because I think we're incredibly excited about the potential of Lightweight M2M, and we're implementing it in a number of our products today and bringing it to market in several different market segments. So what we're all about now is really promoting its use, and it's a really fabulous tool for connecting a wide range of IoT devices, enabling a wide range of use cases of managing in a really rich way these devices through their life cycle. So we're really all about promotion and adoption at this point. So if anyone is interested, I'm happy to answer questions about our experience. I think go to the OMA SpecWorks website and learn more there. But I think we're really looking for people to climb on board and to put even more critical mass behind the standard, because it's an important one and it could be incredibly useful for a really wide range of industries.
Awesome. Efren, what are you excited about the future of AWS and potentially Lightweight M2M?
Yeah, I think the message I want to leave the audience with is at AWS, we work backwards from the customer. So what's most exciting for me is, our focus will remain on enabling you, our customers, to really achieve your business outcomes, right? We focus on supporting interoperability standards, offering a cloud service that's, comprehensive, scalable, and secure. We continue to invest in innovation across the gamut, from edge computing to digital twins, as we touched on, to AI ML. But at the end of the day, when we look at things like Lightweight M2M, it's an enabling technology that we will support, whether directly or through partners like Cumulocity, again, to really help you accelerate your time to market, develop your solutions, and really obtain your business objectives and values. So that's what we're really excited about and look forward to partnering with everybody.
Thank you, Efren. And from a Cumulocity standpoint, we continue to make a strategic investment in supporting the Lightweight M2M standard and being adherent to the latest version, participating in the test fest. We would love, like Ty said, to chat with you about our experiences as members of OMA organization, contributing our ideas and really increasing our, leveraging the ease of use and scalability story that and the diverse southbound communication options that we have inside Cumulocity, and extending that into the world of Lightweight M2M. So more device configurations, continuing to take advantage of the lower power features, continuing to make it easy to own and operate Lightweight M2M devices. It has been a real pleasure. It's always fun to hang out with you guys, whether in person over a coffee or here on a webinar. I'm very grateful for you to have joined and shared this time. I'm grateful to our audience for spending the time with us. Please drop in any questions or chats or follow up with us. We are on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Miguel. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.